This time, I'd like to call the agenda for the October 25th, 2018 meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to order at 1:03 p.m. The machine is open for roll call.
No, it's not.
Take that back. Let the record reflect we have 8 members present. At this time, if we could please stand for the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Nicole Williams will lead the prayer.
Before we pray, I would like to take a moment of silence for the victims of that fire in the Belle Chase area this week. Let's keep that family in our prayers. Thank you. We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish's natural resources. We pray for the protection of our parish, residents, and businesses during this hurricane season. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We also pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move to the next item, please.
There is no executive session. Number 3, status report by the Executive Port Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, and Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. Follows is my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 28 September to 25 October. During this time frame, the port staff and members of Tallgrass continued to conduct community outreach sessions with the Ironton community to ensure any and all concerns regarding the Plaquemines Liquid Terminal project are addressed. In addition, the port staff and members of Castleton Commodities conducted community outreach on the eastern bank, and a recent zoning planning meeting resulted in a 9-0 vote to recommend the zoning change on the Amex property. This allows Castleton Commodities to move forward with their planned methanol project. This plant would result in a $1.5 to $2 billion infrastructure investment, 800 construction jobs, and 30 to 35 permanent jobs. At full build-out, this would equate to roughly $13 million in tax revenues to our parish. The port staff continues to meet with energy and utility providers to ascertain low-cost, environmentally green services as we explore the future of providing the needed services required based on the port build-out plans. In addition, the port has entertained some very specialized rail services that will greatly add to the efficiency and economics of our future build-out. We recently met with members of the United States Army Corps of Engineers to explore the beneficial use of the dredge material titled BudMap program and how it could be coupled with the port's funds in the account with the Corps as an energy donor port to possibly dredge Tiger Pass. This project, coupled with the announced dredging of Baptiste Colette, could further position the Venice Port Complex as the go-to port for support operations of oil and gas exploration in the Eastern Gulf. Lastly, a few announcements. The rail bypass down Harvey Canal and around the Naval Air Station received its federal a FONSI, which is a finding of no significant impact from the Federal Railroad Administration, the FRA. This was the last in a long list of regulatory hurdles to take the rail out of Gretna and Belchase, and will greatly ignite the commercialization of the PLT and eventually the Plaquemines Container Port. And lastly, it was duly noted this past week that Plaquemines Venture Global LNG received a 20-year long-term contract with the state-run oil and gas Polish company. This will deliver 1 million metric tons of LNG for 20 years. This is great news as they commercialize this venture, and it will equate to 50 vessel traverses annually. Mr. Chairman, subject to your questions and comments, this concludes my report.
Thanks, Sandy, for the update, and appreciate you guys continuing your efforts to move the port forward and soliciting new projects. So thank you guys for your continued efforts, and I will open it up to the table for any comments.
Yes, I just want to thank y'all for y'all persistence on the dredging of not only Baptiste Collette but Tiger Pass. That's a huge, huge thing that needs to be done for the Venice port, as well as just traffic in that area, the commercial fishing industry as well. So I just want to thank y'all for y'all continued efforts on that.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Salvant?
Yes, Mr. Sanders, you just mentioned about the rerouting of the rail around the Belchase area. Okay, I would like to know what accommodations are you making for the rail for the southern part of the parish or the rural areas as it relates to the Ironton community and also as it relates to the diversion?
Yes, ma'am. The rail wraparound it will come from West Wego and run down Harvey Canal and then go around the Naval Air Station. It will tie in south of the Naval Air Station into the existing rail. It will come down, and as we get closer to Ironton, we have a 2 or 3 different pictorials that we're going to go around the Ironton community to ensure minimal disruption there and down to the Plaquemines where the port campus would be. We have not selected one, obviously, around Ironton. We're not nearly that close to it. And as we told you at our outbrief meetings, we will be working with you hand in glove to ensure that, that the rail fits what the port's needs are, as well as minimizing disruption with the Irontown community.
Okay, I just want to keep that in front of you to make sure that to lessen the impact on this community and neighboring communities.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to keep that in front of you.
It's right in front of me, Ms. Salvant, very important to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Come on up, sir. Please state your name and number, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Scott Eustace, 1010 Common Street. I work for Gulf Restoration Network. We've been concerned about I'm not sure if this is the time to comment about the Plaquemines Liquids Terminal and our objections based on the engineering report that was issued about the conflicts with the parish drinking water and the long distance.
Actually, sir, if you could hold that for a few more agenda items.
Okay.
That's going to be item number G.
Item number G, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Hearing no more comments, next item, please.
Bids and advertisements. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of bids for furnishing bulk diesel fuel for the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District for a period of 1 year.
I'll offer and ask for a second. Second by Mr. Edgecombe. Comments from the table? Audience? Hearing none, machine is open. The item is adopted 8-0. Next item, please.
Introductions of ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. Bartholomew? Solomon? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Mr. Juno, Ms. Williams, Mr. Roussel? I have a few. A resolution authorizing Maynard J. Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal District, to enter into a professional services agreement with Infinity Engineering Consultants relative to the engineering services needed for the moving of Port Ship Service, Inc. business facilities at Track B3 to Track H, which is track currently owned by Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution to provide insurance for the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District for a period of January 1, 2019 through December 31st, should be 2019, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution to provide port employee group coverages consisting of health, dental, vision, life for the policy period January 1, 2019 through December 31st, 2019 on an employee contributory basis of 83%/17% and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That is all. Ms. Salvant?
I have none.
Mr. Edgecombe?
I have none, sir.
Mr. Black? Any intros for, hearing no more introductions, we'll move to the next item, please.
6A1, I'm sorry, 6B.
I'm sorry, 6B and 6C will be deferred, as well as 7B. B.
6D, a resolution authorizing Maynard Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to extend the current consulting agreement with Latter & Bloom and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer and ask for a second. Second, Ms. Williams. This is basically continuing the services of Latter & Bloom for port land acquisitions and property real estate. Roussel?
Yes, could the administration give us an update on where we're at, what we're doing with this particular firm, since we're renewing the contract?
Yes, sir. It is with Latter & Bloom and Patrick Egan specifically. Y'all know Patrick. He's briefed y'all on a number of different projects, mainly because he's been down here 40 years. He knows the real estate in the parish. When we have folks that come to us with potential projects, we call Patrick. He ensures that we have the property available or their proximity, be it to their feedstock, such as gas or whatever. So we're very happy with the services. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Mr. Roussel.
I was just curious, are we working on any other land acquisitions that he's involved with at this time, or he's like on standby?
He's on standby, yes, sir.
Is that all, Mr. Roussel?
Yes, I just was curious. Thank you.
Any other comments from the table, from the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. And the item is adopted 9-0. Next item, please.
6E, a resolution authorizing the Executive Director, Maynard Sandy Sanders, to extend the current agreement with Mercury Public Affairs to provide consulting, advisory, and lobbying services regarding port representation at the federal level and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer and ask for a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Any comments or questions from the table? Yep, this is basically a renewal for Mercury. They're providing lobbying services for us at the federal level in D.C. And I don't know if you guys want to add any comments to that. Personally, I think the firm's been doing an outstanding job for the port. They were very instrumental in the finalization of the Baptiste Collette project and the Werder bill. And as we said in the committee meeting, I think they're doing a fantastic job for the port. And I think having them on board and continue their service will be greatly needed.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. Former Senator David Vitter has been very good to us. We're splitting his costs with the parish government. I believe this was, he was recommended to us, I believe perhaps you did, Mr. Roussel, and he is, he's really hit it out of the park for us on things that we really need. He's very responsive, and he certainly knows his way around decision makers in our nation's capital. We've been very happy with his services.
I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, so it's a $50,000 contract, 2-year renewal. Same as it was last year. Any more comments? Machine is open.
Oh, I'm sorry, reconsideration, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, yes.
My nails again.
We're going to change that salon.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, reset. Revote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Absolutely. And that item is granted 9-0. Oh, I'm sorry. That was for the reconsideration. This is for the final passage. Please vote again. One more time. And the legislation is adopted 9-0. Thank you. Next item, please.
F, a resolution establishing the date, time, and place of public hearings on the posted 2019 operating budget and capital improvement budget as submitted by the Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to authorize the Council Secretary to place the necessary public notice in the Plaquemines Gazette and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer next for a second. Second, Ms. Williams. Basically, this is setting the budget hearings for November. Comments or questions from the table? Audience? Hearing none, machine is open.
Mr. Bartholomew.
The item's adopted 9-0. Next item, please.
A resolution approving a donation of funds to the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District and authorizing the Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to use such funds to acquire certain immovable property and to execute lease agreement and a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor and Terminal District and the Plaquemines Liquid Terminals, LLC, in connection with the land for certain dock, wharf, and rail improvements, pipeline and pumping infrastructure, blending, storage facility improvements, and any additional improvements related thereto, and providing for other matters in connection with the foregoing.
Before I offer, I'd just like to make a comment. I believe there's several folks here that's going to be speaking on this item, and I would just ask that we adhere to the council rules when it comes to this item. You have 5 minutes to speak and state your name and address for the record, and I'm not going to allow this to be a back and forth debatable item, so let's keep it professional, and so we can conduct business and get out of here. I will offer with the following changes. In the lease agreement and the CEA agreement, the word governing authority is mentioned throughout. There's also in the back of one of the appendixes where it states exactly what governing authority means. The governing authority is the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. So what I've asked the port staff to do, the legal team and Foley Udell, is to go back through this document or documents, and I would like to insert anywhere in there where it says governing authority, to insert the following: the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor Terminal District. And with those changes, I will offer. Second by Mr. Roussel.
Mr. Burke, along with those changes that you're making, there's also was an oversight. I think they referred to the Ironton community as a village. I would like to reflect everywhere that appears, it would say community.
Absolutely. I would ask that the port staff take note of that. And also, too, I've asked for clean records of those changes and distributed to each council member, as well as the council secretary's office prior to any execution of the documents. Mr. Roussel.
One question. In the bonding section of the document, it names specific law firm as the bonding. This is a 40-year document with a 40-year renewal. Should we not take the specific law firm out, not knowing that it might not be here in 40 years, and put specifically bond attorneys?
I would agree with that. So if we can add that as well. And before I get it, well, Mr. Russo seconded, before we go to some discussion, I would like to take the privilege of introducing Mr. Jason Reeves, who is the Managing Director of Tallgrass. Mr. Reeves, I would like to personally thank you and Tallgrass for giving Plaquemines Parish Port the option or the ability to develop a multi-billion-dollar project. And it's folks like yourselves, your firm, that saw the need here and is willing to invest in much-needed infrastructure here, and we greatly appreciate it. So I know your trip down here was probably early this morning, but we are truly grateful for you being here, and thank you. So at this time, I will open up any comments to the table, and then we will open it up to the public for public comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Roussel?
I would like to see a thorough discussion or at least explanation of what we are voting on today by someone from the Port Administration or the attorney to go out and lay out exactly what the deal is so that everyone gets a clear picture of where we're at and where we're going. And I'm going to qualify my comments based on a couple of things. Today, I want the people to understand, especially the people who put the nasty mailer in the mail today about from the Plaquemines citizens opposed to ransacking the public trough, an anonymous group who attacked myself and another council member and the parish president, saying that we are anti-port. My questions today are based on my knowledge of the job that I was elected to do my due diligence and vet this type of project, especially a $2 billion deal that's going to last for 40, possibly 80 years. And I'm somewhat upset that we have cowards in our community that have put this in the mail to attack us, saying that we're not port-friendly, when the record is very clear that the $12 billion worth of projects that are reflected in the mailer today, we have voted continuously, unanimously. We have supported these $12 billion worth of projects. So there's some dissension and some undermining of this body by someone in this community who has taken it upon themselves to come out and put this in the mail. So I want to make it very clear that my questions and my comments are for the public to understand this deal and to very clearly understand what we are signing up for the next 40 to 80 years. So if anybody contributed or assisted in the development of the trash mail, I feel sorry for you and I pray for you. And I hope that you understand that if you would look at the record and tell the truth, that you would not be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roussel. If we could have Ms. Hawthorne from Foley Udell. She's been very instrumental working with the board and the port staff on this project. So floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. Again, Meredith Hathorne with Foley Udell. We were hired to be bond counsel in a prior resolution, and we've been working with the port since then to get this deal to fruition. So just to kind of put it in perspective, a few months ago you approved a purchase agreement with RAM Terminals. And so that is really why we're here today, because we do have a deadline on that purchase agreement. And what we're doing today is changing a little bit from what we had presented to you earlier when I was back here in July. And so I'm going to go over the details of what's going on with respect to how this is being presented. And this is not unusual for us to come to you and say, this is what we think we're doing, and then for things to change. I think that the biggest thing that we had identified at the meeting in July was that the partners were being developed, they were being identified, and as you've mentioned, Tallgrass Energy is now one of the big players, and really the entity that is helping drive the Plaquemine Liquid Terminals company. So they are a member of that entity. So what we have now is that purchase agreement, we still want to have that executed. But in order to have it executed, you need the funds. And Tallgrass, through PLT, the Plaquemine Liquid Terminals, will be providing the funds to the port to actually provide and purchase those acreage identified in that purchase agreement. So again, we have a donation of funds, and then immediately there will be a lease back of the property, absent some carve-out of some acreage that will be continued to be owned by the port. So again, the cooperative endeavor agreement is what establishes the donation, and then we have a lease agreement that establishes the leasing immediately back to the company, to PLT, again, without certain acreage being retained by Plaquemine Port itself. During the term of this agreement, which is 40 years and does allow for another 40 years to be extended, the lessee will be paying pilot payments. And those are payments in lieu of taxes. So those are, the amount is what you would normally be paying if the property and the project was in fact on the tax rolls. We will work with the assessor in order to determine what that value of the property and the project site, the project is. If the assessor, for some reason, is not determining that, there is a fallback mechanism to have an appraisal selected, an appraiser selected to do an appraisal to make sure that the value of that property and project site and project is properly valued. There is also the ability of the company, PLT, to determine if they're going to proceed with the project. As we talked about before, these projects take a long time to develop, so there is a little bit over 4 years for them to see if in fact they can get the project developed. The project itself is identified on Exhibit A to your documents. So again, I won't go into great detail about that unless you need some more detail about that. Obviously, if they determine, and I say they, PLT determines that they do not need all the project site and they release land, they can do that. And then the port does have certain obligations with respect to paying PLT back. Those obligations, though, are clearly stated that they will be paid from funds provided by the other party that you either sell it to, that the port either sells to, or that the port leases to. And we're adding some qualifying language to make sure that we're not creating a debt of the port in any way, or a debt of the parish council or the government or anything else. We also have provided in the documents that the lessee, again PLT, can purchase the improvements on the project site 15 years after the effective date. If they do purchase what we call kind of the vertical, if they purchase that, then those will go on the tax rolls and will be assessed in accordance with normal ad valorem tax assessments. And there is also an administrative fee that is being paid to the port, which is tied to a CPI adjustment, the cost of living adjustment every 6 years. And there also are provisions for PLT to assign its rights to another entity, provided that that assignee has sufficient creditworthiness, which is demonstrated to the port. So that's a very high overview, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments from the board? Mr. Roussel? Mr. Batalo?
The cost is not costing Port nor Plaquemine Parish Council any funding whatsoever, right?
No, sir.
That's right. Just want that for the public
No,
information.
yes, sir. So in the cooperative endeavor agreement, it's very clear that they are providing the funds to purchase, which is stated in the purchase agreement, the $30,500,000. And then there are obviously costs that the port would be incurring to do that. And PLT/Tallgrass has agreed to pay the costs and expenses of the attorneys, plus additional costs like titles and surveys and everything else that is related to the acquisition of that property.
Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, as a follow-up on the pilot, so it's my understanding that the pilot will be 100% of the assessed value and 100% of the millage assessed that year, the calculation made on that to be paid to the port.
Correct.
And the monies that are paid to the port, is there a mechanism how that money will be forwarded and spent?
No, sir. At this time, that has not been determined. Right now, it just provides for the port to receive it, and then the port slash any other taxing body could agree on how to disperse that, and you would have to have subsequent proceedings, either through a resolution or ordinance with another cooperative endeavor agreement or something that would allow the port to transfer money to other governmental entities in the parish.
And do you see any legal hurdles to that transfer of funds, of giving funds to another political entity?
No, I do not. It's very common for entities such as this to have pilot agreements. The details always have to be worked out, but that is a common mechanism for getting pilot payments to other.
So it's my understanding, and I want to be very clear, that whatever the value is of the project, that 100% assessment will be the number that we will use to multiply the 100% of the millages for that year.
Correct.
Now, the second question I have is in the event the leasing determines it requires the use of less than all of the project, and the project, 200 acres, is leased to someone else. In the document, it says that the lease investment plus or minus 12% from the proceeds. In other words, the lessor, which is the parish, which is the port, agrees to repay or cause the developer of such site to repay the lessee a proportional amount of the leasing investment plus or minus 12% from the proceeds. Could you clarify what does that mean, 12% plus or minus?
So what they're trying to do is to make Tallgrass whole with respect to their investment in this property, so that they obviously have given funds, and if in fact amounts of land or released to someone, you would have them being made whole. There are some side agreements between Tallgrass and Drexel that's making that 12%. So it is a little bit complicated. I'm going to let Ken give you more details, but it's really to make them whole pursuant to some agreements that they have. But again, the port, if they lease it, again, their obligation to make those payments are only from the lease payments of that new lessee. And if you sold anything, you would not sell it unless you had enough funds generated from that sale to give back to them to make them whole on their arrangement.
So the statement in here about the lessor agrees to repay.
Says to pay or cause to be paid. You would never make it yourself unless you in fact wanted it and had money and it was fair market value under state law. So there are some restrictions on your ability to change your mind on that.
So I just want to make sure that the obligation of the port is not something that we would be down the line looking for funds to pay.
That's correct. Okay. And again, as I said, we've made a comment that we want to make that clear that it's subject to appropriation, so it's not a debt of you. So we are adding some language to that.
And the value that is now on the property that the taxes are being paid on is about $132,000 a year. That will go away, and the new value of the sale will be the new price that we will assess.
Assuming that the assessor is doing that, I see no reason why they would claim a different number than what the purchase price is for that piece of property. So I don't know what it's valued now at.
Yeah, that's all the questions I have. And thank you for the explanation. I want to make sure the public is very understanding of what's going on, because as you know, there's a lot of misinformation that floats in the community right now, especially at election time.
I'll second that.
Yes, sir.
I believe our Mr. Garrett had a comment.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I understand, because I know there were some changes that y'all did, in the beginning. It appears as though the ad valorem taxes levied by the parish and the sheriff and the school board would serve as the basis for calculating the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but then the pilot, the payment would actually be made to the port instead of to those individual taxing bodies.
At this point, that is correct. It is a flow-through. Again, if you think about it, it's not a tax. So it's not like we don't have all the other taxing bodies as parties to this agreement. So it's not a tax, it's a payment. So that payment, as a lessee payment, is going to be made to the port.
But, and I guess that's the question, is once the payment's made to the port, because it's a payment in lieu of tax, it's actually,
It's a
the
payment.
council, it's not a tax that they're
Right.
entitled to. So it seems there's going to be a constitutional complication with the port then donating that money
It would
to the
not be
school
a
board
donation.
or to the
Right.
council.
Under Article 7, Section 14, there cannot be a donation. You have to show value. So as I said to Mr. Roussel, we will have to have a CEA that will have to explicitly state why they're making those payments to those other entities. But if you think about it, all of the benefits that people get from either the school board or the government, I think that will actually be fairly easy to demonstrate. But you're absolutely right. Article 7, Section 14 is something that we will have to comply with.
Could you avoid the need for those subsequent CEAs and that sort of constitutional complication if the payment in lieu of tax was made directly to the taxing bodies whose millage formed the basis for the payment in lieu of tax?
So we were instructed to do it this way.
Okay.
So if everyone wants to talk about doing something different, then we can talk about that. But this is how we were asked to do it. So,
I understand.
yeah.
I'm just asking, in your opinion, it could be done the other way?
You can work out.
Because the payment in lieu of tax, you can really style those however you want. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, definitely. We had our instructions, so we're happy to change.
Ms. Salvant?
Yes, Ms. Hawthorne, my comments and concerns is somewhat along the line with Mr. Garrett. You know, if we already have a process in place, to create a pilot payment, it's almost like, you're circumventing what's already in place. If the taxing bodies, we already have this with all of the taxing bodies that you would pay the ad valorem straight up. Why are we creating why are we going this route?
So if y'all would like to have something different, I think that we need the instruction on that. This is what we were asked to do, and so someone needs to tell me differently here on this.
But you would have the option
Sure.
to, even as is, do CEAs with those other taxing bodies
Correct.
and appropriate funding to those taxing bodies.
Correct. Upon a showing of benefit under the Constitution, yes. And again, I believe that can be met.
But I'm saying all of those taxing bodies, it could give you
They're still gonna get the same thing. I see him, I see y'all just.
The one thing we have to avoid is what Mr. Garrett noted. We can't just do donations, but we can justify, as all other pilot programs in Louisiana are done, however the council decides that ultimately this needs to be distributed, any of those bodies, let's say it's Plaquemines Parish government, a part of that, there can be a CEA, there are services provided by Plaquemines Parish government that benefit the port. Same thing with the sheriff or the fire department, or we can go on down the list. And so that's the main thing to avoid, is the constitutional problem of simply donating the funds over.
And so we do have time to work this out, and obviously these documents,
I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we can work this out. Again, that payment would not be due until the first tax bill is due, would normally be due, and there would be an invoice sent by the port. So that's going to give you some time to work that out before that first payment is due. So that's what we were anticipating. And if we have to amend something, obviously I believe that PLT and the port would agree to any amendments as directed by y'all, if we want to do that.
As a follow-up on the invoice, what happens if the invoice doesn't come from the port? Does it come from the assessor's office, or?
The invoice comes from the lessor.
So it has
that
to
would
come
be
from the port. So there has to be a good working relationship between the port and the assessor
Absolutely.
to be able to get the invoice in on time for to make the payment. And is there any problem with the invoices not in on time? Is there anything in the language that would say that there's a penalty, default, or whatever?
No, the timing for the payment, Mr. Roussel, is once the lessor, meaning the port, gets the invoice over to the PLT. That's when the timing for payment. So there's no penalty to the port or anything like that if there's, a delay in working with the tax assessor, and we're hoping that's going to be the case, but we also have the default provision of an appraiser.
Mm-hmm. Default.
All right. Mr. Landry, I think you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hawthorne, thank you for coming. I think you did a very good job explaining the parameters of what is clearly a very complicated deal. I just worry that a lot of the folks in the parish, the people may not really understand, this is kind of big city finance, it's really a big deal here. And most of us haven't had the occasion to learn about the nuances of these complicated commercial dealings. But if I understood what you were saying correctly, we have Group A is going to donate to this port, group which is B, and then B is going to lease it back to A, and then A's also got a right to buy back from B down the road. So if we cut through all the fog, what we see here is that this is really just a simulation, and ultimately, I mean, especially in light of what Mr. Roussel just pointed out, this sort of craven, this cowardly mail-out saying people are against development and against the port and against doing business, when in fact, there's nothing free market at all about this, because you essentially, if this deal goes forward, you're going to force the taxpayers of this parish to be an accommodation party for somebody else's disguised loan, because you're socializing
Mr. Landry.
Yes, sir.
Keep your comments professional, please.
I'm sorry,
This ain't no-
accommodation party is a very ugly word. I understand that.
This
I'm
ain't no
against it as
disguised
well.
loan, for one thing.
It is a disguised loan. It's a simulation. Well, I mean, is it or is it not a simulation, a disguised loan
So
to avoid taxation? And foist it on the taxpayers to pay the cost of the deal?
I would, first of all, not call it a simulation. I would, again, if we're going to cut through the chase, okay, to talk about parties, you have someone coming up with $30.5 million. Okay, no one does that just on their own and just gives someone $30 million. So we are in agreement with that.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have $30.5 million being given to the port so that they can perform under the RAM terminal purchase agreement. So the port gets the property with donated funds, not their own. They're going to lease it back to the PLT.
Yes, ma'am.
Except for the port gets 50 acres. That is what the port gets. They get.
Is that the same 50 acres that's going to be taken by CPRA when they do the diversion?
Mr. Landry, your time is up, sir.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you for coming today. As the only parish-wide elected official here, and who is very concerned about providing services to the parish, and as you articulated, and as Mr. Danny Garrett articulated, the revenue stream of parish government for services to our citizens are being put at risk. Please tell me why Section 4.1C states that lessor agrees to repay. Now, is the lessor not the Plaquemines, Port Harbor, and Terminal District?
So in the lease agreement or the CEA, sir? I'm sorry. Which
I'm
agreement?
looking at Section 4.1. The thing's about a half-inch thick, so this is a very complex document. So let's see here. Section 4.1C that Councilman Russo identified. You got to forgive me, there's about 40 pages here.
So if you're talking about the lease agreement, yes, it says, as I mentioned before, it says that the lessor agrees to repay or cause the developer to repay.
Okay, so, but that wasn't my question. So it says lessor agrees to repay. The lessor is the Plaquemines Port Harbor and
Correct.
Terminal District, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, and right here following down the line, repay what? To repay the lessee investment plus 12%. Now, lessee investment is a defined term, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, where is it defined?
It is on page, let me get to it. It's on page 6, section 3.1A. The 30.5 million, as we talked about. The money coming from PLT.
Well, I'm looking at the cooperative endeavor agreement
Okay.
because there's multiple documents and agreements here.
There's 2, yes.
Yes. So under section 2A
Oh, he's got 3 more minutes.
of the cooperative endeavor agreement, it says, company agrees to donate $30.5 million. But then it defines donation as company investment. So in effect, isn't it the port's agreeing to repay the donation plus 12% interest?
No, sir, I'm sorry, it's not. That's not it. So,
That's what it says in these documents, ma'am.
okay, so first of all, again, it says the lessor agrees to pay or cause the developer to repay. So let me give you, please go to the exact language. The third line from the bottom, if you're looking at that, the lessor agrees to repay or cause the developer.
Which, are we in the cooperative endeavor agreement or are we in the lease?
No, we're in the lease, section 4.1C on page 8.
Let me have 2 more minutes, sir.
Okay. So if maybe we could just back up again, because you're right, that provision is complicated, but I'm going to go through it again so that we can just listen to it again, and then stop me if I say something that you don't like so that we can go through it, okay? Right? Okay. So yes, they are giving the port money. Whether you call it a donation or a give or whatever, they are giving the port money. There will be a transfer of $30.5 million plus amounts to pay for this acquisition. So the port will buy it because the port is the party to the RAM terminal.
And ma'am, if I may, they're also missing here is the bill of sale from RAM Terminals to the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. In regular due diligence, call it homework. I think I asked the port chairman for those documents. Do you have them?
So we were asked to stand down to not continue to work on all of the documents with respect to the sale of the property so that we could get your approval to do it so that you would not continue to incur legal fees and everything else. So we are still in the once you approve it, we will get the act of sale and everything else. I will promise you that that act of sale will be as is, because that was in your original purchase agreement. So it will be the act of sale will be a very standard act of sale. And there will be other closing things that we will have to go over. PLT needs to look over the surveys and everything else. So again, a giving of money to the port in order for the port to purchase the property under RAM Terminal Purchase Agreement, which was previously approved by this body. Okay? The port will then turn around and it will lease it to PLT, except for certain land that is retained by the port. PLT, no doubt about it, has complete control over the leased land and what they build, whether they build, what they put on it, what they do. There are certain there are certain parameters, obviously, because we have the project described. But that's their decision, is whether or not they're going to go forward and do anything, or if they're just going to have this land. So because they've given the money to the port, if in fact they end up deciding not to go forward with the project, then obviously they want the ability to sell the land to someone else to get their money back. They will never get the 50 acres back. And they will they will offer a right of first refusal to the port itself. So if for some reason the port wants it, or they will come up with another developer that will come in and either lease it or sell it. The reason why these provisions are in here is because ultimately, remember, the port has title to the land, okay? But obviously, it's subject to a lease. So the lessee, the PLT, they want the flexibility to run their business, do whatever they want, okay? So if you're really thinking about this, what the port is getting is the ability to have the potential for development of a big project there. In
But
addition,
ma'am, couldn't that be accomplished by the normal scope and course of business where Plaquemines Parish government would offer them business incentives, tax incentives, to where they could purchase the land would stay on the tax rolls, and we wouldn't have to have such a complex financial structuring?
so that is a way that other people do it as well. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways. The purchase agreement itself, though, is with RAM Terminals, and so if you're having to do the purchase agreement, which has an expiration date and everything else, it was decided to continue with what was in that purchase agreement. So you're right. So the property and the project site are no longer on the tax rolls. You're absolutely right. What would be bad for the parish is if you were paying less than what the taxes would be. So at this port, at least the same amount is being paid, assuming that the assessor or the fallback position of the appraisal, if they're appraising it the same way, there will be a payment made. The idea was to make everyone whole, to have a dollar amount exactly the same. That's the idea.
Yeah. And one of the agreements,
Mr. Cormier,
one
I
of the
hate to interrupt you, sir, but your time is up.
Councilman Burt, I'm the Plaquemines Parish president.
And I'm the chairman of the port.
And this is part of the
This is a
parish
port
government,
meeting.
and you're
Mr.
putting
Cormier, you are finished, sir.
you're putting the risk of taxpayer money.
Next item, please.
You can't. I'm sorry, you can't do that, Councilman Burt. Ma'am, on
Mr.
on
Cormier.
the issue. Look, you shut me down last week when I asked.
And I'm
a
shutting you down
follow-up
again.
Question.
This is a Plaquemines Port meeting, not a parish president meeting. Do you understand that?
And the public has a right to know
Exactly.
how its money.
And Ms. Hawthorne has explained it. You're not going to use this for political grandstanding, sir. I said that before the
This isn't
meeting.
political grandstand. This is straightforward questions about this complex.
We will move to the next
40
speaker,
page
please.
I'd like to ask some questions, too. I think I'm entitled to 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. Absolutely. You got 5 minutes too, Mr. Barbee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. I have some quick questions for you. So, did I hear you say earlier you don't even know what the current value of the land is?
I don't know what the assessor has assessed it at. I know from a pure standpoint of the port purchasing property, they have to comply with state law, and I believe that we have an appraisal for the purchase amount. But I do not know what the assessor has appraised it at. I'm sorry.
Okay, do you have a copy of that appraisal? Because we haven't seen it. That's why it hasn't been provided.
We don't have it with us.
So we didn't bring the appraisal while we're approving $650 million?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
There's not $650 million at risk?
Well, let's come back to that then. I'm glad you say that. This piece of property, according to the assessor, I believe, was valued at $890,000. Are you aware of that?
No, sorry, I told you I didn't.
Are you aware that this property was bought in '05 for $3,700,000 and then sold in '11 for $25 million with a $24,900,000 note attached to it?
No, sir.
Okay. So have you actually studied the assessment of the value of this land? Looked at the
No.
appraisal?
No, sir. The appraisal speaks for itself. We do have one, so.
Okay. And so my next question would be, and this is the big one I got to ask for the bond and taking on debt. CPRA has announced they're building a diversion in this exact site, correct?
Yes, sir.
How are you going to build a plant in the middle of the CPRA diversion site?
We have
engineering.
We have worked with CPRA. They've defined the area they want, and the plant site does not include where the CPRA intends to go.
And did you get a coastal use permit? Do you have that yet?
For the
Proposed plant?
For this, the permitting is all in place. That's what I know.
Well, yes or no? Title 44, 49, 214, etc. says you have to have a coastal use permit approved for by the state, including any port, harbor, and terminal district before any project can proceed. Do you have it?
that we have the permitting in place to go forward.
Let me answer that.
Everything that we need for the
We're-
acquisition.
Hold on, Mr. Rath. We're not voting on the construction of the project. We're voting on to buy the land. To my understanding, that it's still going through the permitting process.
Okay. I appreciate that, but under your lease, under section 4.1, under D, if for any reason this project tanks because of CPRA and because of any coastal restoration activities, we not only owe them their money back, but we got to add 12% to it, right?
No, that's not correct.
That's not correct.
That is not
Well,
correct.
Mr. Rathburn, since I got you here, this is going to be an interesting question for you then. Because you sat in front of this exact body not that many months ago and told me that I was wrong on the tax issue, that we would still get taxes on the Venture Global site. Do you remember that? Your comment to this body was, oh no, we still get taxes on it. Now I notice in this lease, it says we don't get taxes. Which is it?
Are you talking about this project?
I'm talking about this project and I'm talking about Venture Global.
I'll address this project right here. That's the one we're here for. There's a pilot payment equivalent to taxes that are being paid.
Not to general government.
Which goes to the port, not to the government, correct?
It goes to wherever the council tells us to distribute it. The port is not, the council has made clear that the port will not be retaining the pilot payment. It will get distributed as the council determines is best.
Okay. Well, so with Venture Global's payments, are they going to be done the same?
Mr. Barber, we're talking about tall grass. Keep it to tall grass, please.
We're trying to find a snake in the tall
I'm
grass.
just trying to figure
I'm
out.
sorry, what did you say, sir?
I said we're trying to find a snake in the tall grass.
Well, there's no snakes. If another comment, I'm gonna have you put out of here.
Please, I would like to see that.
Robin, get this man out of here.
Miss Robin, please, come manhandle me, Miss Robin.
Mr. Chairman,
Miss Robin, take me up.
this is absolutely crazy.
It is. It's a goddamn shame. We got people like this who we got $2.5 billion worth of freaking projects on the table, and you got conspiracy theorists like you trying to railroad them. I'm sorry. My apologies.
May I interrupt?
I apologize. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make one. This is Belinda Hazel. I'm the Plaquemines Parish Assessor. I just wanted to make one correction of something that I heard.
Please.
There are actually 2 assessments on the property on the Ram.
And what-
so that
what is
was
it?
the total. I don't have in front of me, but it's over 20 million.
And that's based upon what? The last sale?
That's based. We reassess every 4 years. So we reassessed in 2016. We'll reassess again in 2020, and in 2016, I believe it's on the roll at like 46,000 an acre.
And that was that was following the sale for $25 million.
There are
which-
2 assessments. You're looking at one.
Okay, I understand that. But that's following the $25 million sale in 2011,
We don't
right?
sale chase. We used sales, industrial sales, and we have the same price per acre on all the industrial property in that area.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
not the exact sales price.
Okay, I appreciate that. So, but nevertheless, I come back to it with no, not you, First Lady. I'm sorry,
She can't
and I
come
apologize for the outbreak of my colleague, but
She can't come
you can understand, we're a little bit concerned. I'm really concerned that we're talking about building a project that could be taken by CPRA, and then we're going to owe these people more money back. Is that not a realistic concern?
No, sir, I don't believe it because of the representations and the agreements with CPRA that is not going to be happening. So again, I'm going to let them answer about CPRA.
Okay, so
But-
you haven't seen any of those or been party to those?
No, sir, not to those discussions.
Okay, thank you.
But I know
Appreciate
that
it.
they have had those. And I would say, I probably shouldn't, but there are no bonds at this point. There are no bonds.
I understand.
Okay, I just want to be
Thank you,
sure
Ms.
that you said
Hawthorne,
those
for your,
bonds.
thank you. At this time, I'm sorry,
Councilmember Burke,
Mr. Burmaster.
Melvin Burmaster, and thank you, ma'am. What
I'm
did
sure
she
this
do?
was orchestrated.
To preface my remarks, I've worked with Ray Cornelius quite a few years when he was at your firm and also at Adams and Reese. And I have some technical questions. First of all, you did note that that there would be protective language in the bond documents regarding the parish government. Why is that so?
So first of all, there are no bond documents? Because we're not doing bonds?
Well, a bond, according to the Constitution, is broadly cast.
Absolutely.
An obligation, right.
It's the definition of anything, it's an evidence of indebtedness for borrowed money. So I do not believe that this is borrowed money. And again, because of the language that the parish president actually highlighted for you, which was that they would pay or cost to be paid, that I want to make it 1,000% clear that it is not the responsibility of the parish or the port or any other governing authority. It's always just nice to have good language in there.
But you do intend, I mean, there is a provision, is there not, for bond issuance? And would the collateral documents and agreements and obligations be subsumed into that bond issue?
Well, absolutely, if there are in fact bonds, but I will tell you that because of Tallgrass being a publicly traded company, it is doubtful that the tax, even though they would be tax exempt at this point, Tallgrass can borrow at a cheaper rate under their own financing arrangements than do in the bond, so I do not actually believe that bonds will be done. And we would obviously have to come back to this body if there were going to be bonds.
But then the first question was, well, why was the reference made to need for protective language for the parish government?
Well, again, if you look at some bonds, they talk about a hospital bond, for instance, payable from a hospital revenue. They'll say it's not the obligation of this, and this body in the state of Louisiana and everything else. As you know, we are lawyers. We put everything in there. So
Yes,
I will
ma'am.
probably put the state of Louisiana in there as well.
Now, Foley Udell, is it not a bond counsel to the Plaquemines Parish government?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And finally,
This sounds like a damn courtroom.
when would you, if you was to contemplate a bond issue, when would the 30-day preemptive period begin to run?
Oh, my goodness, it'd have to be when you had a much better resolution. We don't have details. The original resolution, it might have had some language in there about starting preemption, but at this point, again, we don't have details enough. We don't have a preliminary agreement. We have nothing sufficient at this time for me to go forward with a bond issue.
What about the resolution which was passed a month ago? Would that not trigger the 30-day preemptive period under the Constitution?
We could probably argue that, but again, I'm going to say this. We don't have a signed preliminary agreement. So there is nothing going forward, and at this point. So again, I can only say from my standpoint as bond counsel that I would want to come back to y'all because at this point there are no bonds. And what we said originally was that we would come back to the parish with a very good detailed list about what was going on, and I don't have that. So there are no bonds, and so I would want to come back to this body. I told them that I would with more details, and I don't have those details.
But, right, you did make a point, but as attorneys, I would not personally, on behalf of Plaquemines Parish government, want to argue that a prior resolution would trigger the 30-day preemptive period. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Master. This time I'll open it up to the audience. Anyone wants to come up and speak on this project, please state your name and address for the record. And you have 5 minutes, please.
Good evening. Sharon Brannon, 11781 Highway 23, District 6. I just have a couple of questions because since we're not privy to the entire document, I just made some notes at the beginning of the presentation that I need some clarification on, if you don't mind. The first thing, one thing that was said was they obviously have been given funds. So have funds already changed hands now? Because I'm assuming they mean the port. Has that, okay.
No.
There's been, okay. Then, because then there was another statement, made whole. So who, at this point in time, who needs to be made whole? Because that was early in the presentation.
So the port needs to be made whole because it spent some money on attorney's fees. So when this is done, then the port will be reimbursed for those fees. And then also, the concept of making whole is that, again, the PLT company is buying land. If they sell it, or if there is a sale or a lease of it subsequent to this, they would like to get their investment back. Again, making whole as much as you can. Yes. Okay.
And another question, the statement was made, side agreements. Can you clarify what you meant by that?
So that is between the equity partners of PLT and not a part of the port or the parish government or anyone else.
Okay, so to be clear, there's no side agreements being made with the port and any entity. Okay. And then I got confused where it said that ad valorem will be used in payment in lieu of tax. So to me, it seems that, you know, we should be selling the property to people who want to invest and build, and then that makes our tax, you know, the ad valorem taxes more robust. So we already have a port section on our ad valorem taxes, because I see it on my, you know, homestead taxes that, you know, never went to vote of the public, which it may or may not have needed to. But so now, the question is, are we going to continue to give that piece of the ad valorem? I think it's, what is it now, 1.5 mils. It was 3 mils. We went down to 1.5 mils. Do we keep giving that 1.5 mils to the port? And then what is this other payment in lieu of tax? What does that mean?
It's zero. There's no mills from going to the port, Ms. Brannon. When I was the chairman, this body, we went down from 3 to 1.5 to 0, and we've been at 0 for a year or two. So you don't pay any mills to.
Well, not a year. Okay, but it is.
I know, but so people talk about rumors and things like that, and a lot of people keep saying that we pay this millage. We don't. We don't pay 1.5 or 3 mills anymore. It's over with.
So, but it ended recently, because I know we've seen
2 years ago.
Well, okay, we could check. That's
Yeah,
easy
well,
enough
I mean,
to
1 or
check.
2
We
years. I
just
don't want
need
to
to go
I
into
don't
our
know.
files and look at our.
It's still ended though, so stop saying we're still paying it.
I stand corrected.
Okay, no, I'm talking to him.
Oh, sorry, I know. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's a year. I don't know exactly when it was.
Assessor Belinda Hazel, I can answer this one. The 1.5 mills was collected in 2017. The bill that you'll get for 2018 will not have any millage from the port on it because they've paid off whatever they paid off, and we're done with that.
Okay.
So that's why you have lower millage this year than you had last year.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Good. So now, what is this ad valorem that's not a tax, that's going to be it's going to be in lieu of a tax. It's going to be a payment, is what I wrote down. A payment in lieu of a tax. So, who wants to take that one?
This ain't a Q&A.
Where does that come from? If the ad valorem, if the port isn't on our ad valorem taxes anymore, so are we taking it? Because what I also heard was that it's going to come from the
value.
But
based on the assessed value.
Hold on,
Right.
I'll let Mr. Roussel answer that.
So wait, let me finish my question, because excuse me, I didn't. So the money has to come from somewhere, and if there's no longer a pot designated as the port, then now it's got to either come from the schools or fire or fill in the blank. Where is it coming from?
It comes from
I'll let Mr.
the
Roussel answer.
payment that Tallgrass will make in lieu of the taxes that they would normally pay. And so what happens is, as the discussion earlier in this presentation, I asked the specific questions whether or not they were going to pay 100% of the assessed value of the facility, and the answer was yes. I also asked if they were going to pay 100% of the millages that are on the books for that year, and the answer was yes. And so the benefit that I see is that instead of them going through the 10-year tax and the industrial tax exemption, which the rules have been changed and said that they only pay the 80-20 split, we are going to get 100%, which I specifically put on the record to make sure that when they come to us, that there's no discussion about the industrial tax exemption being applied. So we are benefiting by receiving the 100% value. So the payments come from Tallgrass. Instead of paying the tax bill, they pay the port in the same amount, 100%, and that's when the question will come about who distributes and how it's distributed. Does that
But I
make
guess
sense?
I follow
Ms.
you, but
Brandon.
what I don't understand is,
5 minutes is up, Ms. Brand, I'm sorry.
okay. Then the last thing is that we were asked to, quote, stand down on the act of sale. Who asked that? And why would you be asked to stand down on an act of sale if this whole thing is based on,
Brandon.
the property itself?
Thank you.
It wasn't it's a stand down until it's approved by the council, because I apologize. We were asked to stand down so as not to incur any more attorney fees on preparing the act of sale until and if the council approves going forward with it, because it's contemplating an act of sale taking place at the closing. Once the council approves it, an act of sale will be prepared to go to the closing like you would your home on real estate.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon.
Thank you. My name is Scott Eustace. I'm working for the Gulf Restoration Network, a 24-year-old environmental advocacy group on behalf of all of our members across the northern Gulf Coast and in Plaquemines Parish. We'd like to state our objection to item G because there have not been wetlands permits applied for certain things like the pipeline aspects. The applications that have been submitted by the district are incomplete because they haven't considered all of the things that were raised by the engineering report from Arcadis in October 2012, outlining the conflicts of this particular property, not only with the diversion, I understand, but also with the drinking water in Plaquemines Parish and the long-distance sediment pipeline projects. So leaving aside the diversion, there are those coastal restoration conflicts with this particular property. The applicant, the district, has not submitted an alternatives analysis, which is required by DNR. It's required by the Army Corps. We hear the fix is in, the money is in, everything's done. That worries us greatly, and so I would remind the council that we all have a duty to the state constitution, Article 9, to protect our natural resources and to restore our natural resources. So I would advise that if the council has not read this engineering report about this piece of property, outlining the objections on the basis of the impacts to the drinking water intake in Belle Chase and the different dredge marsh creation projects, I think you're making a decision without full consideration. In this body, as well as the district, they have their own, you have your own duties to the Constitution under Article 9, and that's been interpreted as, alternatives analyses and cost-benefit calculations by the Supreme Court of Louisiana. So, we keep bringing up, we've been talking about this report since 2012 in every public forum we can, and again, we see that the land deal is driving the engineering when under the Constitution, the engineering should be driving the land deal. So, the wetlands applications, which I review in my work across the Gulf Coast, are incomplete. There are items in item G that have been seen in no wetlands application at all. The applications that have been submitted are incomplete, and a lot of it comes down to, people don't like to read this engineering report because it means that this particular property will be deselected in favor of some other site that does not have the conflicts with drinking water, that does not have the conflicts with the marsh creation, that does not have the conflicts with this sediment diversion program. Our members in Louisiana, I live in New Orleans, I'm dependent on the state master plan if I want to keep living in Louisiana, especially after 2040 when we're going to get sea level rise. You know, we see there's a tornado this morning. There's more and more rain all the time from all of the heat coming off the Gulf of Mexico. You know, the integrity of the Louisiana coast is a national security issue, and we take that very seriously. So to have a land agreement that hasn't considered all of these engineering conflicts go forward without considering them when we've been talking about this for 6 years, we do think that that would be out of order for the council to proceed. So we do object to this project on other environmental bases as well. The pipeline would be connected to St. James Parish, and our members there, their health is greatly affected by the oil storage. We've had members and supporters pass away while, you know, we're discussing these pipelines and oil tanks in St. James Council chambers, and, you know, people get respiratory distress. People have, you know, different skin aberrations. There's lots of cancer in St. James, and, you know, I do think that you should hear from the folks that already live by these oil terminals. Not to mention
Scott,
the fact that this site also flooded in Isaac, which was a Category 1 storm. So I don't think anyone should be
I'm sorry, but
putting their money
time's up,
in,
sir.
yeah, don't put the state money in a site that's going to be destroyed in the next storm. Please listen to the engineering. Please delay this vote at least until you have time to review that October 2012 engineering report. And I can email it to you. Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
Yeah, I just wanted to address the drinking water issue. The drinking water issue, you know, I feel comfortable that we are expanding the Belle Chase water plant. We appropriated $17 million to do that, and we are taking the water intake in the Port Sulphur area out of service, and it'll be a booster station. And this site is located many miles below the Belle Chase water intake. So I feel comfortable that we're not doing any harm to the water system. As far as the other issues, they'll have to do all of that in their permitting process, and you'll have an opportunity to voice your opposition or raise your issues in that process. This is strictly allowing the execution of a land agreement. If it doesn't work out, we'll either sell the property, they'll take off and we'll own the property, but the downsides that you are referencing will be addressed in the study process as far as the permitting goes.
Thank you, Mr. Roussel. Mr.
Just
You
for
can't come back
clarity-
to the podium, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
It does involve the Belle Chase intake.
You want to go to jail?
That's my
Paddy
friend. I don't want my friend to go to jail, you know.
He's good.
I know the lawyer, he's local, he probably can get out, but that's my good friend. I don't want to go to jail. Anyway, I am just confused, and Mr. Burke, I don't want to get you upset because it seems like every time somebody says something, they send you to a high level of your festivity, and I don't want to go there.
Appreciate that.
But I want to say this, is that one of the statements that stands out to me more than any statement that was said is when the attorney here said they want to avoid the Constitution. That scares me. When I hear in any deal, when you're having a deal dealing with the governing body, and I was really, my heart was filled with joy when I heard for the first time, Mr. Burke, that you said that you want every language to say that the Plaquemine Parish government is a sole authority. I felt good about that. Hearing that language and being excited, but to hear someone say that we want to avoid the Constitution scared me. There's so much complication. Even the lady here kept saying that it's complicated. And tall grass energy, when I first heard it, and I hear your passion about that you don't, you know, the old saying, don't kick a gift horse in the mouth. I was really believing that tall grass was coming in as a really philanthropist and was doing something out of goodness and kindness because they love the parish. But the more I was listening, especially before you interrupted President Cormier and sent our good friend, I looked like they was getting to the crust of what tall grass is all about. Because it seemed like to me is that they're not just donating some money, it seems like they're being an investor. And the only thing I'm concerned is that in the process of doing this is that the parish doesn't lose and the taxpayers in the parish doesn't lose. Because I'm always questioning when somebody want to give me some money. Because I don't think people just give money, this kind of money, you know, in a business deal. You don't give this kind of money in no business deal unless you're getting something out of it. So while you are taking your position that we should not argue just because somebody giving us money, they're not giving us anything. They're making an investment, and I'm still trying to find out what's going to be the return on the investment. I'm still concerned about how we're not going to the regular process with anybody coming and giving them tax breaks. I mean, it's like they're trying to put us in a Trump hole, and I'm not talking about y'all president, Mr. Trump, but it seems like we'll be in a Trump hole. And I want to leave with this. Rivas Ortiz, who's a judge, told me one time when I took a position, and I was confused, and everybody, he said, you know what? This young man is like a law's ball in tall grasses. And I'm going to leave y'all with that. Seems like the council going to be a law's ball in tall grass.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
How you doing? My name's Gary Lincoln. Actually, it's just a couple of short statements. First of all, I don't want to do anything to hinder the port. I think it could be one of the most fantastic things that ever happened if it happens. However, we're looking at a mass amount of money, and we're looking at what seems to be a good bit of confusion on who's going to be on the land, you know, the exact numbers that are involved. A lot of the things don't really seem to be coming to light like they should. When someone asks a question, I think this is large enough and big enough where if a question's asked, it doesn't really matter how trivial of a question or how simple it seems to everyone, you know, that's here. But everyone wants to know the truth and the honesty and what exactly is going on. I mean, I've always been told that the only dumb question is one that's not asked. So there shouldn't be anyone shutting down one another trying, you know, when they're trying to get information out there. And I don't know if I'm going to be thrown out for this or not, but this is the way it really needs to be. Y'all need to try to work together and get all of the questions answered, all of the questions up here. The only question I could say that's not important here is the size of Mr. Sanders' underwear. So, I mean, I really think y'all need to try to put as much on the table and so the people out here can figure out what's going on. Thank you very much.
Appreciate those comments. Wow.
Good afternoon, Grace Morris with the Sierra Club. We're based in New Orleans. And I thank you for those comments. I echo the sentiments, and I think it's too bad that this conversation where questions have been treated like comments. We've been trying to get information about what this proposal is about, and I still don't think the public has this lease agreement, or and it's disconcerting to hear that the parish president doesn't have the documents. That means the public definitely doesn't have them. So this has been a bizarre conversation. I'm glad Scott covered the technical issues, that there is no coastal use permit, and actually our coastal restoration plan is imperative for all of us who live in coastal Louisiana. We have been fighting to make sure that that plan works for the people of Plaquemines Parish and coastal Louisiana, and to make sure that that plan has consistency. And this is just like many of us have dealt with the Ram coal export terminal and the inconsistency that and the big wrench that put in the $1 billion restoration project, the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion. We find ourselves in a similar situation today. Whenever Billy Nungesser sends a letter of support, it raises all of our attention. And so I'm just wondering, is Billy Nungesser still running this port? And is Billy Nungesser still running this parish? So the irony of a sitting lieutenant governor advocating for a terminal that has not responded to the many issues raised by the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority is hopefully not lost here. RAM, we actually told the company this. RAM Coal Export Company, which many of you are aware that we fought for 5 years from being on that site. RAM was sold a bill of goods. RAM bought that land for $20 million too much. And there was some, I'm really glad that that land deal was brought up today, because I haven't actually looked at the property record since 2013, and I meant to dig through my records today, but I was racing to get here. It's even more ridiculous than what I had remembered. I knew it was Kenny Stewart successfully got $20 million out of an out-of-state company that didn't do their due diligence. And I talked to the private equity firm that backed RAM, and they said that they had no idea that the Midbury-Terry sediment diversion was proposed for that piece of property, and maybe they wouldn't have paid Kenny Stewart next to $20 million than they needed to if they had known. Now, I mean, that's their own fault. They didn't do their due diligence, but, and in their defense, the Midbury-Terry sediment diversion was not as far along in its own permitting process as it is as we stand here today. And so I think that, yeah, the idea that this piece of property is worth $30 million smells of possible extortion down the road. Is that $30 million going to be what the parish is going to try to get the state to pay for that land to put in a coastal restoration project that we all need? You know, who's going to end up with this land? Is it the parish that's going to end up with this land, or is it this energy company that's going to get into some sort of land war with the state over the Midbury-Terry sediment diversion? I mean, we've been asking the state to buy this land so that these kind of gymnastics can be avoided, and the sort of corrupt land deals that get made. And I think there's some talk about why the land that the port bought some years ago was bought. The Plaquemines Parish Intermodal Port Study, the recommendation for that land was that the port was going to be on the east bank. And that didn't happen. And I think there's some theories of why that didn't happen, and that the parish's own recommendations from its intermodal study back in, I think, 2002, 2005, why weren't those followed? And so there are a lot of questions here. At the very least, this seems to be some creative gymnastics around why doesn't Tallgrass simply purchase the property from RAM? And who is on the hook here? And the message that this sends, so even though you all are sitting here today as port commissioners voting on item G, we all know that you are the Plaquemines Parish Council, and at some point we'll be voting on a building permit, on a construction permit. And so there's a message that gets sent by not reading the engineering report, by cowing to a company that doesn't have a coastal use permit. And the question is, you know, why is there such preferential treatment given to this one company that has a huge conflict of interest with a major project in the state's coastal restoration plan? So thank you for your time today. Please
thank you.
Either push this vote down the road or vote against item G.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item before I call the question?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Port Commission. Pardon me, I'm a little bit under the weather today, only from the rain Tuesday, I assure you. The Board of Directors of the Plaquemines Association of Business and Industry unanimously voted to support the Plaquemines Lucas Terminal project. In a meeting this morning, I want to thank the Port for all their participation in this. I want to thank the attorneys for giving us any information. I want to thank the assessor. We had no problem finding out information on this issue. So thank you very much. The project provides the first major lease in port history and a total of $2.5 billion in private investment. I'm going to repeat that. The project provides the first major lease in port history and a total of $2.5 billion in private investment. What's most important to PABI are the 1,200 local construction jobs and 35 permanent jobs with salaries averaging $70,000. As an added bonus to our parish, the conservation easement in place next to the Ironton community will forever protect this historic community from industrial encroachment. In addition, the negotiated pilot program will provide full payment based on the assessed value of the facility and revenues for our taxing bodies. Pardon me. The remainder of the property not used by PLT will be developed by the port for additional jobs and revenues. This is part of $12 billion in announced investment in the Port of Plaquemines Parish. We've asked the port to deliver, and they have. We're asking you to vote yes and to support the economic development in our parish. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Ken Raggers, 1311 Holiday Place, New Orleans, Louisiana. Speaking of permits, the young lady from the Sierra Club didn't mention that the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion does not have a permit. And it will be 2 years before the EIS comes out, and they may not get the favorable EIS report. So this thing is not written in stone, okay? So there's a lot to it than that, and anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other final comments from the audience? Hearing none. Any from the table? I'm sorry, Ms. Williams.
I just have one comment. I just want the public to know that these documents were submitted to the Public Information Officer on Tuesday, October the 16th, and then she posted on our website, so they're available to the public. This has been almost 2 weeks, and it's just frustrating that we come here and sit over an hour. And I understand it's an important issue. It is extremely important that we move this parish forward. So I just, for those that say they didn't have the documents or didn't have access, all of this was made public. I'm not sure when the Public Information Officer put it on the website, but I'm sure it's been over a week.
Thank you, Ms.
Councilman,
Machine is open.
Councilman Williams, the appraisals
Mr.
and the bill of
Cormier.
sale
Cormier.
were not
Mr. Cormier.
made public. We've been referencing the 40-some-odd pages here, but the appraisals and the bill of sale were not made public. So that's incorrect.
Machine is open.
That's not anywhere. That's not included
Ms.
in this
Williams.
document
Ms.
that I'm
Williams.
referring to.
Machine is open.
We don't have that either.
And the item is granted 8-0. Thank you, fellow council members, for your support, and we look forward to a successful project. Thank you all. Next item, please.
Item, new business, introduction of resolutions wherein suspension is being sought. Item 7A1, a resolution to cancel the November 22nd and December 27th, 2018 regularly scheduled port meetings due to the Thanksgiving holiday and the Christmas holiday, and to schedule a special port meeting on November 8th, 2018 and December 3rd, 2018, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer and ask for a second on the suspension. Second by Ms. Williams. Comments or questions?
On the suspension.
On the suspension only. You got them fingernails down there. Suspension's granted 9-0.
A resolution to cancel the November 22nd, 2018 and December 27, 2018 regularly scheduled port meetings due to the Thanksgiving holiday and the Christmas holiday, and to schedule a special port meeting on November 8, 2018 and December 13, 2018, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer and ask for a second. Second by Mr. Edgecombe. Comments or questions for final passage? Hearing none. I can't hear you down here, John. Come on, you usually loud, man. The item is adopted 9-0. Item 7B will be deferred. Next item, please.
Number 8, approval of the September 27, 2018 meeting minutes and the October 11, 2018 special meeting minutes.
I will offer.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bartholomew. Any comments or questions from the table? The audience? Machine is open. I got you, Mr. John. The minutes are adopted 9-0. I will make an offer to adjourn. A second? Yes. Second by Mr. Bartholomew. Machine is open. And we are adjourned at 2:37. If we could just take about a 5-minute intermission, everybody re-energize and regroup. Thank you all very much. 3 minutes. 3 minutes, I'm sorry.